Welcome to the tutorial for Practice 2A, Basic Drawing and Editing Commands for AutoCAD 2020. The practice objectives are drawing lines and using dynamic input, delete objects from a drawing using the erase command, draw horizontal and vertical lines using polar tracking, draw rectangles and circles using various circle command options. The estimated time for completion of this assignment is about 25 minutes. That may or may not be how long it takes to complete this tutorial. Might be able to get through a little faster, but anyway, let's begin. So with all practice assignments, this would be the first assignment for my class that you'll have to submit to me. As with all these practice assignments from the Ascent textbook, it'll show you what the object should look like at its final product. So basically, when I look at the top air figure 2-18 and 2-17, that's what it should look like when you submit that to me in AutoCAD through Google Classroom. All right, so task 1 says draw lines with dynamic input. In this task, you will draw lines using dynamic input as shown in figure 2-19. So here's an example of what it's supposed to look like. Open object.dwg from the practice file folders. It is an empty drawing. So go to open files. Choose the correct file location. And I want to choose object.dwg. And it does prompt you like, hey, there's not going to be anything in this file, unlike the other practice assignments you've seen so far. Step 2 says in the status bar, verify that the dynamic input is toggled on. Dynamic input, it gives you a little picture of what it looks like. There it is. If you do not see it on this practice folder or this practice file, on the far right side here, there is the customization, which is like 3 parallel lines. If I click that, I can make sure it's checked on. So if I check it off, it goes away. If I check it back on, it comes back on. Just make sure it's checked if it's not showing up here. And it has a little plus with like a bar underneath of it. So it's turned on. I know it's turned on because it's blue. If it's turned off, it'll be grayed in color. Step 3 says in the Home tab draw panel, click the line. So up here in the Home tab, this is the ribbon itself. This is the draw panel. So anything that's in this panel here would be the draw panel. And then right there is the line command. So I'm going to click the line command. At the dynamic input, specify first point prompt, enter 5,5 as shown in figure 2-20 and press enter. Before I get to that point, notice that next to the cursor, which is a set of crosshairs, it tells you what to do. Specify first point, and it has like the numbers for the X and Y Cartesian plane. If I were to turn dynamic input off, notice that that prompt is no longer next to me. It doesn't specify information anymore. So for all AutoCAD drawings from here on out, I don't know of an instance where you would want to turn this off. Always make sure it's turned on, because then it'll tell you important information in the crosshairs there. The first blue highlighted blue number is the X coordinate. I can manually type that in, hit 5. To move over to the next point, I can hit the tab key. Tab will move me over to the next number. I'll hit 5 again. And once I do that, I'll press enter. And what it does is it specifies the exact point. So if I look at my Cartesian point, here's the origin. I come over 5 and up 5, and that's where the beginning of my line is basically placed at. Number 5 says move the crosshairs up and to the right from the first point, and enter 10 for the first distance, tab, enter 45 for the angle, and then press enter. So you got to make sure you're up and to the right in order to specify exactly the direction you want to go. Because if I have my cursor down to the right and you type 10 and 45, instead of the arrow going up and to the right, it's going to go down to the right. So you always want to make sure you move your cursor in the right direction. Make sure it's in that first quadrant if you're going to reference it to math class. So I'm going to manually type 10 for the length. I'm going to hit tab, which will give me the angle, and I'm going to manually input 45 on the keyboard, hit enter. All right, so I drew that line 10 inches long, or 10 units long, with an angle of 45 degrees. Move the crosshairs above the last point. Enter 4 for the distance, press tab and enter 90, and press enter for the angle. This draws the next segment straight up. So make sure my line is going straight up. Notice, and this is, we'll get to this in a different practice assignment, but that green dotted line is called polar tracking. Sorry, not object, polar tracking. It is called snapshot. It's the object snap tracking is what it's called. So it's going to come up in the vertical direction. So it kind of helps me guide myself. I'm going to manually input 4, hit tab, and I'm going to manually type 90 just to make sure it's going in that direction. Enter. Move the crosshairs to the right and draw the next line segment 6 units straight to the right at 0 degrees. So I'm going to hit 6, tab, 0, enter. Move the crosshairs down 4 units straight down, type 90. So we're going to do 4, tab, and then we're going to hit type 90, enter. Then move the crosshairs down and draw the next segment 10 units at 45 degrees. 10, tab, 45, enter. And then for the last segment across the bottom of the shape, press the down arrow to display the command options. Select close to close the figure. So I can use the keyboard, use the down arrow. It brings up options, and I can choose close. Or I can right-click the mouse and choose close as well. And that's typically the way I typically do it. And it will close it. And notice that when I hit close, it'll take the line back to where it started, and it finishes the command. So there's no longer a command active anymore. And that finishes task 1. Task 2 says in the home key modify panel, click erase. Hover the cursor over a line segment. It turns light gray. Click on it to confirm selection. Similarly, select several other lines which turn light gray, indicating that they are selected for erasing as shown in figure 2-23, and then press enter. So up here is the erase command. I'm going to choose that, and then I'm going to come down here. And it even tells me in the command line, it tells me the command erase, but then next to it says select object. So it tells me what I should do. And even next to my dynamic input, it tells me as well. So I'm going to select that line, and that line. And I don't have to hold shift or control. I don't have to do any of that. Just click it. AutoCAD automatically selects all of them that you click. Once I select them, I'll then press enter, and then it erases them for you. 2, without being in a command, select any remaining lines which are highlighted with grips, and then press delete. So I'm going to select the rest of these objects, and then I'm just going to go to my keyboard and press delete. So that's another way you can do it. So you can use the delete key, or you can use the erase command. Both do basically the same thing. And that finishes task 2. Task 3 says use polar tracking. In this task, you will use the line command with polar tracking to draw horizontal and vertical lines as shown in figure 2-24. So in the status bar, click the arrow in the polar tracking. To display the angle list, select 90, 180, 270, 360 if required as shown in figure 2-25. So in the status bar is down here in the bottom right corner of your screen. We want to make sure that we turn on this right here. It's already turned on for my screen, but right now, so it's turned off. I'm going to turn it back on, and I'm going to verify by clicking this little drop down key which ones I have selected. So it's telling me in the textbook that I should select 90, 180, 270, 360. So I select that. 2, in the status bar, toggle on polar tracking if it's not already on. Start the line command. At the specify first point prompt, enter 0, 0, and press enter. So I'm going to go up, use the line command. I'm going to type 0, tab, 0 on the keyboard. I'm going to press enter on the keyboard, and it will automatically place my line at the origin, 0, 0. And then notice when my cursor gets close to 0, that green line shows up. That green line will only show up specified on the angles that I chose. So it's only going to show up for 0. It's only going to show up for 90. It's only going to show up for 180. It's only going to show up for 270. It's showing on AutoCAD 90. AutoCAD will only measure the angles with respect to up to 180 degrees. Or you can think of that as negative 90, however you want to look at it. And then 360 is back to where it began. So it's only going to show it for vertical and horizontal angles as I move around. So it just helps you align your cursor as you make your lines. Makes it a little bit easier. Step 3 says move the crosshairs straight to the right from the start point. You may need to pan down in the drawing when the tracking line displays with polar distance less than 0 as shown on the left in figure 2-26. Enter 30, which automatically overwrites the value in dialog box as shown on the right in figure 2-26. Press enter. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. But notice if I bring my cursor close to horizontal, that object tracking line or snap tracking line shows up. It says in the blue there 19.9398. But as soon as I start typing a number, say 30, and I hit enter, it automatically overwrites it and draws a 30-degree line. I did not have to enter the angle either. And I don't have to enter the angle because as long as my crosshair is causing that green arrow, that green line to form, I know that it's automatically going to be at 0 degrees. If I wanted to go straight up, as long as that green line is going straight up, I don't have to manually input 90 degrees. It'll automatically do it for you. It will assume that because that green line is showing up. All right, so then it tells us that step 4, move the crosshair straight up from the new point. When the tracking line displays with polar distance less than 90, enter 20 and press enter. So we're going to move the crosshair straight up. There's a green line kind of shows. I'm going to type 90. I don't have to worry about typing the angle. Press enter, and it automatically makes a 20-unit line straight up. Continue to draw the shape shown in figure 2-24 by moving the crosshairs in multiples of 90-degree angles and typing the distance for each segment. So I'm going to look at that picture in the textbook there. It says I'm supposed to go over 10 units to the left, and I could be way out here if I wanted to. It doesn't matter. I'll type 10, enter, and it makes it 10 units long. Let's go down 5. So as long as that green line's showing, I can type 5, enter. To the left, 10 units. Up, 5 units. To the left, 10 units. And now I have one more side to draw, and you could bring it back down and touch it right where you began. But if you do that, it's not going to finish the command. The best habit to get into is when you go to draw that last line to finish the object, right click, and it doesn't even need to be on that. I can make it all the way out here, right click it and choose close, and it will bring it back to where it started and close out the line command. Step 6 says for the last segment, type C and press enter to close the figure and exit the line command. So in step 6, it's just a shortcut. I could type C and do the same exact thing. I find myself easier since I'm using the mouse to control where the line is going to be drawn. It's a lot easier for me just to right click and choose close. It's a lot easier for me to right click and choose close in order for me to do a command. So you could use C, you could do it like that, or you could hit the crosshair keys on the keyboard and it'll show as well. And one thing that you'll find in AutoCAD is that there's about 5 to 10 different ways to do the same exact thing. And the reason for that is because AutoCAD's been around for a long time. As you probably well know, you don't like change. You like to have consistency. So you can imagine an engineer who's been designing and working with CAD since like 1997. And then all of a sudden they come out with all these new upgrades in 2020. Well, you might not like those upgrades. You're a creature of habit. So they always keep the old commands in AutoCAD and they just keep adding the newer commands. So those of you that are learning now today are going to be using, the ribbon like this, and that's how it's the best way. It's the most economical way of looking at it. But AutoCAD has the option. I can actually make it look different. I can make it look like the old way of Windows. And if you could remember a time with like Microsoft Word 2003 or 2000, this was what it looked like. If you wanted to do any type of options, you just had the tabs, and that's all you had. So you can pick and choose how you want to show and how you want to present AutoCAD. And it's just about preferences. People who have been working with it for a long time want to use the old preferences. Those that are learning AutoCAD for the first time will typically use the newer preferences. The newer preferences are usually easier. Task 4 says in this task, you will draw rectangles and locate them precisely using coordinates and dynamic input as shown in figure 2-27. Step 1, in the home tab, draw panel, click the rectangle box. So home tab, here's the draw panel. There's the rectangle box. I'm going to select it. For the first point, enter the coordinates 2, comma 2 and press enter. So we're going to type 2, we hit the tab key, hit 2, press enter. So it automatically locks that corner of the rectangle to that 2, comma 2 region. And next it says for the other corner, enter 6, comma 11 and enter, and then press enter to create a 6 by 11 rectangle. So I'll move it up and to the right here, and I'm going to hit 6, tab 11, enter, and it makes my first rectangle as shown in the figure 2-27. Draw a second rectangle with the first corner at point 18, comma 4, in the dimensions shown in figure 2-27. So I'm going to go to the rectangle command again, and then I want to type in there 18. I'm going to hit the tab key, 4, enter. It locks me in. And it says that it should be 5 units up and 8 units to the right. So okay, the way that I can do that, there's a couple different ways I can do that. The way that it's probably going to ask you to do it in the textbook here, if I'm going 18 units to the right in the x coordinate, if I want to go another 8 units to the right, 18 plus 8 gives me 26. So I'm going to physically type 26, tab over, and then if I do 4 units for the y-axis, I need to go up another 5. So that y coordinate is going to be 9. So I'll type 9. I'll hit enter. Oops, something happened there. Oops. Let's redo that one. Sometimes you make mistakes. So let's do the rectangle command. Specify first point is 18, tab 4, enter. And then as far as my next point, specify the corner here. Okay, I see what's happening. So it looks like AutoCAD. Okay, so this is when I misjudged myself. Once you create your first point, it says specify the other corner. The other corner is with respect to the point you just created, not with respect to the origin. So that's why that's why that mistake happened. So all I have to do is hit 8 for the x. How far in the x direction do I want it? How far in the y direction do I want it? Hit enter, and then it will create the rectangle as shown in 2-27. My first instinct, and I was kind of going back to the original point. Um, if I reference it from the origin, I have to come out all the way and then come up. That's where I was doing the math. But it looks like AutoCAD does not do that. AutoCAD only references it from the origin once you place it, that first point. And then the second point, or the other corner opposite to the corner you just placed, is always a reference to the first point. So my mistake. Then it says save drawing. Now, for my class, when you go to save drawing, you want to make sure you save it in a way that you can submit it to me on Google Classroom. So I'm going to go up here, and this is really the only change from the textbook that you have to pay close attention to. I'm going to do a save as. All right. And then instead of leaving it as object like it says in the drawing, I'm going to manually input my last name. So it's Brown underscore first name. So it'd be Curtis underscore, and then physically type practice. And in this case, it's 2A. Don't leave it as, Brown underscore Curtis underscore object. The reason why I want you to type practice 2A is, first off, when I go to grade assignments and there's like 20 some of you in the class, I automatically know which practice assignment I'm grading. Also, for logical order in your file folder, if I come to you and say, hey, you never submitted, practice 2A, you can automatically go to your files and say, oh, right here's practice 2A. I can see it because the file name says 2A. But if you name it Brown underscore Curtis underscore object, and I tell you, hey, you never uploaded practice 2A, you're not going to know which practice file that is. So make sure you name it this way, or you could end up losing points when I go to grade the assignment. So I'll hit save. All right. And that pretty much is the only difference between the textbook and my assignment, the way that you're going to submit it through Google Classroom. And that finishes task 4. Task 5 says we're going to draw some circles now. And this task, you will draw circles using the center, comma, diameter, comma, tan, radius, and tan options as shown in figure 2-28. So in the home tab, draw a panel, circle flyout, click center diameter. Okay, so it's a lot of steps there. Basically, you're in the home tab, drawing panels here. There's the circle, but you want to use the flyout, this little drop down key. I open that up and it gives you all the different ways that you can basically draw circles. The one that we want to choose based off the first step is center diameter. To create the circle in the upper right corner, enter 25, 16 to place the center point and enter 4 for the diameter. So I'm going to manually type in the XY coordinates, the center point for my circle. And it says it should be 25, 16, 25, tab 16, enter. And now I can either use my cursor to place it, and I can make it as big as I want or small as I want. Or you can manually input the number. It tells me that I should enter 4. Enter. And that places my first circle. 2 says to draw a circle inside the rectangle on the right side. In the circle flyout, click tan radius. Select the top line of the rectangle as the first deferred tangent point and the left one as the second tangent point. Press enter to accept the default radius of 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my circle command. Hit this drop down key. I want to choose tan radius. And then my command line tells me what I should do first. It says specify point on object for the first tangent of the circle. So I'm going to basically click one side, and you can see a little green symbol shows up next to my cursor. It emphasizes that circle is going to touch that edge. Then I'm going to go up to my second side, which would be that one. And then it says specify the radius. It's already set to 2. I don't have to mess with it. If it's not, enter 2 and you'll be good. I can just hit enter since it's already there. And it places my circle exactly in that corner. So the radius of the circle is 2. And by hitting tan, it places the circle right along the edge of this line. And it places the circle right along the edge of this line. And the tangent function, basically what that tangent means is that this circle only touches this line at one exact point, and that is it. Same thing up here. This circle will only touch this line at one exact point. Step 3 says draw a circle touching the 3 sides of the rectangle shown on the left side using tan. So I'm going to zoom out, pan over, zoom in here a little bit, go back to my circle command in the ribbon. I'm going to choose tan. And now I'm just going to press the top 3 sides here. So left side, top side, and the right side. And it will place a circle tangent to those 3 sides. I don't have to input any numbers for that. And then it says save and close the drawing. And that basically finishes the command. So if you haven't named it the way you're supposed to name it, for my class at least, make sure you do that now. Since I already did that, I can see it now, practice _ Curtis _ practice 2A. See that asterisk next to it as a refresher. If I hit save, notice that asterisk now goes away. It means that my file is now completed. And that's what it should look like when you submit it to me. And that ends practice 2A tutorial.